Hello and welcome back to Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. This video was actually a requested video from a number of weeks or months ago. Can't remember when or by whom, but the question proposed was in the context of what we talk about on this channel, life after death, spirituality. In particular, the concept that we continue as individuals after we kick the bucket would, given this context, the death penalty still be a good idea? So it is an interesting question that I want to talk about real quick, not a super long video. Before we get started, I apologize if you hear all like the pop music in the background. So let's take a listen. So yeah, it's very noisy in here because the only place I can get proper Wi-Fi is this cafe here in Hanoi, Vietnam. So now we have this perpetual kind of soundtrack, but I'm cool with it if you are. So we just gotta deal with that. Also wanted to mention, if you please hit that subscribe button if you like these subjects. That literally keeps the channel going. It's the easiest way to support the work I do. Is just to subscribe, like the videos, share the videos, hit that notification bell if you haven't done so yet. If you're into these kind of weird, crazy, supernatural subjects, not everybody is. Some people hate this stuff, hate my work, hate like new agey woo-woo stuff. But that's just how some people are wired. Um, but for other people like myself, we endlessly research these subjects because it's so relevant to everybody. I keep looking to my right because there's somebody like who's poking their head to the door, like, hello, 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 anybody in there? So I'm trying to figure out like what they want. Do they want to come in here? Do they want to take a seat? I don't know. That's the thing about doing these videos publicly is that I have this short attention span, so I'm always looking around. Like if I see a shiny object, like my attention is going to go to that shiny object. So I have up here the list of death row inmates in the United States. Uh, 2,620. I believe the United States has one of the highest amounts of death row inmates of anywhere in the world. Certainly comparable to somewhere like China, although in a country like China, we don't know how many undocumented people are being executed. You can actually there was a whole subject about the something that's really just completely horrific, which is what the Chinese do to practitioners of Falun Gong, a peaceful philosophy that's kind of like Qigong. It involves meditation and kind of channeling energy through the body and philosophy. And so, since like last 20 years, the Chinese have been rounding up members of Falun Gong and euthanizing them and selling their organs because the Falun Gong members are very healthy. So they found out it's very lucrative to kill them and take out their organs and sell them to people. So that's just some of the lovely stuff that our governments like to do. And, by comparison, I guess the USA isn't so bad as that, but still, we love to fire up that electric chair. And so, under the context of what we talk about here, which is life after death, what happens to somebody who's executed? Well, the thing is that we have this tendency to overly simplify these subjects. So what we can verify, what has been studied, what has been scientifically scrutinized, what we've learned about through great researchers, whether that's Beischel or Schwartz, or going back in time to the early spiritualist experiments, the early 20th century. To after death contact, all the stuff that we research. What we know is that we can talk to people who are dead. I mean that's proven at this point. I've done it a zillion times in astral projection states. It's to me, it's not even an area of debate. So that means that people who die, who are executed, like the materialist orthodoxy or the Christian fundamentalist orthodoxy, will have people either no longer existing or waiting for judgment by Jesus. We know that neither of these possibilities are accurate. And of course, you get like the New Age perspectives, like we rejoin the universe, and which is very similar to non-existence. Again, the individual is gone, and so we don't have to worry or think about that person anymore. We also, I believe, that is also an inact that is also proven wrong at this point. So it means that let's take an actual case where somebody really is an unsympathetic murdering psychopath, and then we execute that person. Well, what's going to happen? Well, again, despite what the New Agers claim, which is that we die, we become perfect godlike beings without flaws. Instead, we know through powerful mediums. By the way, there's a great book actually by called "A Deadly Departed" by Jock Brocus, I think, which discusses the dark side of spirit contact. And we know that there's negative entities out there, and um, so so with that in mind, what happens if you execute like just the most evil person you can imagine? It means that they are now converted into a higher dimensional entity, which is they're still very much themselves, but now they're going to go to a world that's corresponding to where it best suits them. And that will probably be a pretty nasty, grimy, dark, disheveled place. And I will say that I think most people who cross over in this way, they will in fact be fairly isolated away from being any danger to us because they're going to be trapped in this like dark realm, a dark condition. But it's not always the case. I do believe there's such a thing as a negative entity or an individual who who dies, who will who I'm getting the shiny object syndrome again because now there's somebody poking their head through the door and taking photos. I think of me. Maybe because I'm like a white guy. I don't know. It's sometimes it's funny in Vietnam. You get weird attention. I don't. Anyway, um, so there are instances where people living on that side can negatively affect our world. So they will perhaps become truly earthbound. So they will hang around this in-between state. They will like possess people. They will influence people. They're so addicted to feed off of negative energy that they go to places where that's happening, and they put their aggression, their anger into people, or they will attempt to influence people to do certain things. Maybe because they find some kind of sick sense of humor behind it. And so this is a spiral, and God knows the limit of just how negative and destructive and chaotic such an evil entity can become. In this situation, executing somebody like that before they're properly and actually rehabilitated, even to a small degree, getting even a small degree of self awareness about what they are and what they're doing, then really what it's doing is it is empowering that person. It is sending them to the other side where they could potentially become 10 times worse than if they were just sitting in a prison cell on this side. So, kind of in the Star Wars analogy, you kill me and I'll become more powerful than you can ever imagine. Well, this could also relate to negative and dark entities. So, for this reason, I do think that the death penalty, for the most part, could be a bad idea. Um, Now, for somebody who is on death row, but really they're not a bad person, there was some accident, or maybe they're there incorrectly, or maybe they did it, they murdered somebody, or they did something really terrible, but then they've reformed themselves, they've chosen a new path in life, and almost like they've made their amends. Then then death. I mean, it's ultimately it's their own individual process. So what I talked about earlier, I was mentioning how we oversimplify these subjects way too much. So we want to say that this one type of thing will happen to everybody. So people say, what happens to death row inmates when they die? It's like, what kind of question is that? I mean, there's so many different things. That's saying like, what happens to people what happens to people who ride boats when they die? Like, okay, what does that even mean? Everybody has a different path in life, and different things will happen to different people, and it's impossible to quantify all of that. But I can say in general, though, if somebody did something really bad, raped and killed somebody, oops, I said the RAP word. Maybe YouTube is going to censor me now. Whatever. If somebody did something really bad to somebody else, then it's going to be up to them to basically make amends with the victim of that. And what I kind of, what I really learned from reading like Jurgen's books, like Vistas of Infinity, is it just seems like a big part of that is the ability for the victim of that thing that happened to be able to forgive the person who committed that crime. And just like, I mean, we see that just like this in the real world when you do something really bad to somebody. You notice that we never really get over it. We never really are able to forgive ourselves until that person that we did that thing to is able to forgive us. That seems to be kind of the probably that basis, especially when we talk about subjects like karma. I think that's what it comes down to is that like we need that forgiveness with that person that we did whatever bad thing to. And without getting that, I think it's a long and bumpy road. And it also shows you that there is a joint responsibility to be able to forgive people who do really horrible things. So long as that person who you forgive, if you know by doing that, it's going to help set them on, a path of recovery from being an evil entity. So, so we always learn about the power of forgiveness, but then I think that there can be a very dark situation when that forgiveness never arises, and an entity, just fosters more hatred, more anger until finally they reach a point where maybe even forgiving them won't even help them because they're so far gone. They become such an advanced evil entity that, you know, God knows, maybe nothing can even save them or rescue them. And we do hear about weird stories about higher powers having to like kind of cosmically remove entities that have become so corrupted and so evil that they are of no longer even serving a purpose in this universe. So real kind of like cosmic good and evil stuff that happens. Crazy stuff. So in summary, look, actually, I don't support the death penalty. Yeah, that's just my opinion. I think that we need to be able to find ways to psychologically reform people because that's what spiritually matters. And just cutting somebody out doesn't, it fixes the symptom, which is the person is committing these crimes, but it doesn't fix the underlying cause. And if it provides a sense of relief for the family, understand that it's paper thin because vengeance is a short-lasting fixation. You can get vengeance, and then you're going to feel, a month or a year down the road, you're going to feel like this kind of empty sensation because the vengeance was just, as they say famously, two wrongs attempting to make a right, and then that strategy not working out so well because it never does. Those are my thoughts about this subject. What do you think? Put it in the comments down below. Get involved at afterlifetopics.com. If you want to learn about subjects like life after death from the beginning, pick up my first book, Understanding Life After Death. It's on Amazon. You can grab it on Kindle or on paperback. It's only a couple bucks, so it's super cheap. Helps keep me going while I live out of a backpack. And people have said it's a pretty good book, I guess, at least from all the reviews I've received. It's kind of a summary of the evidence and the existence of what happens when we leave this corporeal existence behind us. So important stuff because I think actually you're gonna die someday. Believe it or not, you're gonna die. Could be tomorrow, could be in 20 years, could be 50 years, but you're out of here. You're gonna die. There's nothing you can do about it. So I think it's wise for us to figure out what happens then, because as Morrison says, no one gets out of here alive.